Weaponeer here, and I'm outside rather than inside the studio, and the reason is I wanted to make sure that I'm in conditions which are not the greatest. Number one, I've got the sun to my back. Typically you cannot always control where the sun is going to be and where you have to go ahead and shoot video or even for photos. So by having the sun there, that puts me in a position where this area is basically more in shadow. The sun is providing a nice amount of light, but I am basically in that shadow since it's right directly to my back. And the other thing is we've got really high winds. Winds are gusting from about 5 miles an hour to about 30 miles an hour right now, which makes it very difficult to go ahead and hold a reflector. Now the reflector, I'm doing this all by myself. I've got a reflector holder, and the reflector holder is basically down in front of the camera, set at a specific angle, so when I move forward, it'll start filling in the shadows in my face. Now this time I'm using a white one. I have a multi-color reflector, gold, silver, white, so you have your choices between which kind of color you're looking for. And because it'll be a different fill color. If you used a gold one, it has a warmer look to it, rather than the white one was just a light fill. So I'm going to go ahead and move forward, and you should be able to start seeing a difference in the, be able to show the difference in the shadows. They should fill in a little bit better. And since it's low, so they can't control everything here, but since it is low, it's able to go ahead and fill in from underneath a little bit. So typically outdoors, if you're, it's like noontime, you have a lot of shadows, and those shadows might be, having areas like the chin, and underneath the chin, and the eyes and nose. You're going to have some shadows there. In order to fix that, the best thing to use is a reflector. The reflector from the bottom is able to go ahead and reflect up and basically cover up some of those shadows, and it makes it better video or photo. Now the one I have is a fancier version, but it's far from really expensive. This right here is extremely affordable, and you don't even have to go to that extent. If you have assistance, you can go ahead and have somebody with a plain white foam board, and those flexible foam boards are used for signs and things. Well, you can use one of those and have someone reflect the light directly into, or into the area you need to cover, and that'll work just as well. If you have people to help you out, it's going to make it a lot easier. It's easier to control where the light and the fill is. Right now, I have no idea where the light and the fill is because I don't. On my camera that I'm using right now, wow. On the camera I'm using right now, it doesn't have the ability to move the viewfinder. I'm using DSLR, so not my typical camera that I use for HD shooting. But this right here, basically, if I step closer, you should be able to go ahead and see differences again. So as you see, it fills in the shadows just a little bit. It's not, the white one is not supposed to be overwhelming. It's just supposed to lightly fill in the shadows. Where you go ahead and you switch to the silver one or to the gold one, and those right there will really reflect a lot more light. It's like putting a mirror in front of you. It is a lot more harsh, and it's quite blinding, so you got to be careful. It's better, you're better to stay farther away as possible that you can in order to go ahead and do the job without being right in front and blinding the person in front of the camera. Because if you got that light directly into the eyes, and that person wants to squint, and that's the last thing you want them to do on camera. So I'll go ahead and I'll go back into the studio and I'll show you just how this looks, and see you in a second. Okay, I'm back after a little bit of a wardrobe change. Well, this right here, this is it. Now, it looks small, but this right here will actually expand quite a little bit, and I really can't hold it up too much because right now I'm set with this type of lighting, and right now I'm just happen to be using auto white balance. Sometimes you use it, sometimes you don't, sometimes it comes in handy. typically when I'm doing reviews and things like that, the settings on my camera, the way they are right now, come very close to what I need. But in this case, this is really going to screw up my balance. Now, this right here is it. And when I say it's going to screw up my balance, when you have auto white balance, and you go ahead and you put something up like this is something really bright, see what happens to me? That's one of the things why you don't want to go ahead and use auto white balance a lot. If you're using auto white balance, you want to make sure you know that you realize it and that you compensate for that. And like I said, this right here is the reflector I was using. It's got gold on one side and got white on the other. I was using the white side. And then on the inside, this unzips right here. And on the inside, it's silver. And on this side, it's black. So you can reverse that. And on the inside, it's white. So it's a big white panel. I use those white panels for adjusting white balance. Typically, when I'm using this camera here, I'm adjusting white balance in post. And I'm using one of these. So I basically go ahead and at the start of the video, I take this, I hold it out there, I turn it around, I hold it out there. It gives me an option of which type I want, if I want it warmer or not. And then that way I can go ahead and kind of set that stuff in post. Okay, how I was holding that is really simple. I have a light stand right here, and I'm just using a holder. This right here is a reflector holder, and it has these little clips right here that allow you to clip on your reflector, and then you're able to go ahead and use this to adjust it up and down and right and left and everything else. So that's how I was doing it. Actually, rather than up, I had it nearly all the way down. So that's how you go ahead and you get away with it. Like I said, this is a very easy setup. It doesn't take very much. You could do basically the same thing, probably better, with one person basically holding one of these reflectors, or just simply using the whiteboard. And this is that foam board, and you can go ahead, and the idea is to bounce the light. And it's really hard because my light's basically coming at me right now, but once you do, you go ahead and you take that light and you bounce it, and you kind of fill in the shadows, and it kind of evens it out. That way you're doing less work in post, because if you're trying to go ahead and lighten something up in post, it's a lot more difficult. So in post here, I'm going to go ahead and actually drop it down, because I want the black background to be jet black. So there you go. That right there is just a quick tutorial on using the big reflector here. It doesn't require a whole lot of knowledge to use these. Really, it's not rocket science. You're basically using this to go ahead and reflect light to fill shadows. That's it. It's that easy. So there you go. If you have any questions, feel free to post it below. Don't forget to rate the video. I'm Weaponeer, and I'll catch you in the next one. What you want? What you want? Come on. Come on. Come on.